Hello and welcome everybody to another Thursday night live stream. I appreciate you all being here. Got my buddy, pal, and co-host Chattanooga Ed here with me per usual. Thank you, Ed, for being here as always. So we are going to talk about the T.A.N.K method, T.A.N.K. What is it? How do we apply it? And all of that fun stuff. But before we get into that, I want to say a huge thank you all for being here. A very cool thing that YouTube has rolled out with the members being able to do that special message there. Give you all a little bit more acknowledgement, show some appreciation. So thank you all, awesome members. So many of you in here. Carol Cox, S. S said, don't mind me just pushing buttons. And Carol Cox saying, it's a cool new YouTube thing. Hello all from West Virginia. Very, very neat. I will say it did have me confused because I'm like, is it a new, like, they renewed their membership or what's, because it shows up in a colored format, kind of like a super chat or a super sticker, but it doesn't have a dollar amount. And I was like, how do I thank them when I don't know? So I appreciate you all helping me understand that firsthand. We got 21 people in here. Thanks for being here. Of course, HSPS's Tank Tribe as well. Saying, oh, sweet, I have one on this page. Hello, everybody. We'll let a couple more people roll in here. Blue Rhino, what's going on? Patty's Petite Tanks, good to see you. Hopefully the audio and video are good. I did do something a little different with the mic tonight. Ended up getting into the floor somehow. I don't know. Between the dog and the kids, I'm not entirely sure, but my Yeti ended up in the floor and the screen got a little bit dented. So I'm like, you know what? I'm moving it over to the boom arm. That way it doesn't end up in the floor and I can just, move it way up into the air when I'm not using it. Scuba Stevo, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. HSPS, I hope you get to feeling better. I really, really do. So let's talk about what is the T.A.N.K method. And this is not necessarily something new. Skull, thank you for the AV check. Appreciate that. And this is something that you all are practicing. But it's something that's really geared towards the new people in the hobby. We do get a decent bit of new people. So we always want to try and help them out. And that's a big part of us being here every Thursday night is to help each other and help new people. That way we can continue to grow the hobby and make it a fun and enjoyable place. So Tank, it's just something that kind of popped in my head and it got stuck there. But the Tank method, or the philosophy of it, is time acquiring new knowledge, T.A.N.K. And basically what we want to do is we want to fill that tank with some different things. And once we've got that tank full and established, that is how we become successful hobbyists. So we can enjoy the hobby more. We can keep fish in better habitats, better environments, and have them enjoy long, healthy lives while we enjoy them from the comfort of our own homes. Yes, it does. IHSPS was saying it shows their time in grade per se in regards to membership length, and it does on there. That's very, very cool. IHSPS has been a member for 9 months. Thank you so much for that. Carol Cox, also a member for 9 months, and S, a member for 11 months. You're almost to that 1 year badge. Thank you and congratulations on that. And thanks to all of you all. Very much appreciate you. All of the members who got to see the little video I posted for the members only, I appreciate the feedback from you all. I think, hey, Lefty3213A, thank you for becoming a member. Welcome to the team. Appreciate you, buddy. And it is good to see you, Lefty. Always a pleasure having you around. And thank you for everything you do, my friend. But I did post a little video. I was like, I don't know if I should post this for everyone or not. So I asked for some feedback, and you all were very, very nice. But that one's going to stay just for the members. I'm actually going to do a reshoot on that, taking into consideration the feedback from you all, which reaffirmed some of my thoughts on things that were kind of bothering me with it. So I hope you enjoy that, members. You're going to keep that one all to yourselves. Sarah J. Sieber, a member for 7 months, says, hey, everyone, I think the tank method is why I'm always changing things. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that. Again, if you're just rolling in, we've got 50 people now watching. Tank, time acquiring new knowledge, T.A.N.K. So what does the tank need? Well, it's the same thing that all of our tanks at home need, all of our aquariums. You want to fill it with water. And that water is going to be, that's the basics. So that is the necessity. That's something that, you have to have. least in my opinion. So we'll say you could keep fish without having this, but it's not going to be easy for you, and probably not the fish. So what are some things that would go under the filling the tank with water column with this? Well, I mean, it's a general understanding of water parameters and also how to test those. Now, myself, I don't test a whole lot. I've been testing more. A fish shell, happy birthday in 5 days. I see you in there. I appreciate you being with us tonight. But yeah, I've been testing more because I am using these new test strips, and I want to give them a long-term test out before I do a video on it. But testing is something that I feel is very important for a new hobbyist to not only understand how to do. Okay, I read the directions, I put the strips in, or I did however many drops if you're using one of the liquid test kits. But also understanding what those results mean, understanding what the parameters are and how they function within the tank, how they function with each other, and how they affect your fish. So that would be one of those drops in the bucket, if you will, on putting water in this tank. And for the most part, when I talk tank tonight, that's what I'll be referring to is this method or this database of knowledge that you are building as a hobbyist. Other thing, of course, would be, and I put this secondary. Thank you to everybody coming over from KG Tropicals, John Elise at fishkeeping.com, KG Tropicals. I appreciate you all very, very much for the send over. Enjoyed your subject for tonight. And that's actually one of the things that's on this list. Ed saying, I think James is cool. I appreciate that. All you awesome members. Ed has been a member for 17 months. Go you, Ed. You're one of the very first members on the channel. I do appreciate you. But I put understanding water parameters and testing even before learning about the cycle, simply because if you go through the basics of learning, okay, I need to cycle a tank so these numbers show up on a test stick or in a test tube. You need to know what they mean to really effectively be a fish keeper and keep your fish in good health. So I would put cycling after understanding what those things mean. It includes all sorts of other things, just the basics of how do filters work, and I know some of us are like, oh, I know how my filter works. But you have to understand from somebody that's perspective that is new to the hobby, maybe they don't understand how a sponge filter works. Maybe they don't understand the premise of that air creating an uplift through the tube, which then sucks water through the sponge, and how that mechanical process works. Or even how their sponge filter is put together and maybe parts that they should be cleaning that they're not cleaning. If you're going to use canisters, understanding how a canister works, how the different compartments function, what's their purpose. There's a shark filter there that Ed got from keepfishkeeping.com. And it's good to know just a general idea. And this is not even really in-depth study. I don't want to think that, I need to spend 20 hours learning the scientific process of the cycle, if you will. This is just general guidelines of basic knowledge. How does the sump work? How does the canister filter work? If you're going to use something in the hobby, at least have a basic working knowledge of it. Now, I guess I should have prefaced this whole thing with, if you're the person that's walking into the fish store and you're just throwing a bunch of money at the fish store and saying, give me pretty fish and take care of my tank, and it's more of an art piece in your home, this is probably not for you, but you're also probably not watching this. But I will throw that out there. Some other things, just the basics of how to clean a tank, kind of touching on what John Elise talked about. Can you have a tank too clean? Ed's known people and I've known people, and a lot of us have probably known people that have cleaned their tanks to the point of killing off the bacteria, and they're constantly recycling. The Zen Ginger there, I'm a 17 months too. Absolutely. Zen was the very first member, if I'm not mistaken. I think she was my first member and the first super chat I ever received. Team Zebra in the hizzy. Thank you, Zen, for that very, very much. Everything you do as a moderator and a friend. So thank you. Dennis Christensen, that is a very valid point. So 60 years ago, all I ever tested for was pH. Absolutely. And I can understand that. But broad spectrum, and this applies to, we'll say, like the the community fish list, you know, the list of things that are safe to go with each other, the compatibility chart. That's what I'm looking for. The fish compatibility chart you see in a lot of places. I think it's a very good guideline for a new hobbyist. I don't think it is an end all be all. And I don't think that you absolutely have to go by that list and go, well, these fish absolutely cannot be together. I've got a lot of mixes of things that I would not recommend for a beginner. Um, you know, just because you need to kind of understand fish personality, behavior, and necessities before you start doing different things, so to speak. Um, but I do think that it would be helpful in general, broad spectrum, because that's how we help the most people. And again, I want to say that, you know, we're here. I'm not here to instruct. We're here to hopefully inspire. We want to inspire people to be better fish keepers and be more successful at fish keeping. So I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. These are just thoughts that I've had as somebody that's kept fish for many years and talking to people that have kept fish for many years. And these are all things that we kind of have done maybe instinctively, maybe through having, you know, problems. But this is kind of something we all have done. We've built this database of knowledge. We've taken this tank, this time acquiring new knowledge, and we filled it with all these things. And that's how we help people. Finn Wiggles says, I've been a member for 17 minutes. There we go. Finn Wiggles, again, thank you. Became a new member last week, I believe it was, maybe the week before. But yeah, absolutely. And L99, I see that, and I will get to it here shortly. Other things, you know, just basic fish info. I'm not saying you need to have a basic working knowledge of every single fish in the hobby, but what I would say is have the understanding of how fish work, if you will. And by that, what I mean is, if you look at one of, I think, the biggest misconceptions, or at least it was for a long time, a fish will only grow to the size of its tank. There are many people out there that are still under that ideology. That you can put any size fish in any size tank and it's okay because it will only grow to the size of its tank. So if you just have a general understanding, a very, again, broad spectrum knowledge of how fish work, you know, how the process of putting fish in a glass box actually works and works successfully, that's going to help you out a lot. Another thing I would put into that is just having looked at enough fish or being interested in fish enough to just know what a healthy fish looks like. Not necessarily going and studying every single disease. Because again, we're just filling the tank with water. We're just putting the basics in there. We need to get this tank, time acquiring new knowledge, full. Get that water in there so that we can start stocking this tank. And we'll get to stocking that tank in a moment and what exactly that is. But understanding what a healthy fish looks like, you know, how many people new to the hobby have gone out there and they bought a sick fish that either it was a disease or it was emaciated. You know, it was just not a healthy fish. I know I've bought fish that weren't healthy before, and I'm sure a lot of us have. So
but
I think
I'm not new,
right? Well, and I've also, you know, I've also got fish that were not the healthiest on purpose. Fish I've looked at and gone, I know that I can get that fish better, whereas the pet store may not be able to supply it with the time and medications and whatnot that it requires to get that fish in a better shape. Or you have somebody that's got a fish that got, you know, tore up and they need a new home for it. And it's going to take some time and some effort to get that fish healed up. I've done that, but this is more so for the new person in the hobby. They're going in there like, oh, I bought all these neon tetras and they have these funny little white speckles on them. And I thought it was kind of cute, like polka dots. Well, that was actually ick. So just a general understanding of what a healthy fish looks like. There are a lot of things, and I'm sure you all could also add some things to that. But that is the water for our tank. That is the basics. That is kind of a requirement of general knowledge to help you keep fish better. Can you do it without those things? Absolutely. Are you probably going to struggle more? Yeah, I'd say so, maybe. But again, we're trying to help people have the best hobby they possibly can as easily as they possibly can with healthy fish. So let's see here. L99 says, could you also talk about which plants are happiest in unheated tanks or tanks at different temperatures? I find it very confusing. Yes, so I will segue off to that for just a moment. We could do a whole hour on that. And I think we have in one of the previous shows. We've done so many episodes now that it's hard to keep track of everything that we've covered.
I almost was going to suggest to see if you wanted me to plant a tank while you were doing this.
Well, there you go.
Because I've got a 55 cold water tank.
Well,
I'm planting.
I'll let you
I'm
take that,
tomorrow.
Ed. What are some plants for that cold water tank? Since it is about unheated tanks right there.
You know what? I think everything works. I'm probably not the best guy for this,
right?
Because I think plants seem to do really well just about in everything. At least, I'm not a high tech guy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have the CO2 tanks. So all the plants that I get are just real generic plants. But my cold water tank is going to be about 68 to 70, temperature wise. And I'm just going to be planting a nubius in there and some java fern and some other real basic plants that I know I can grow.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And then I got some plants from Sean Peck. I have no idea what they are, so I'm going to stick them in there and see what happens.
Absolutely. So in terms of the cooler side of things, I have found, like yourself, most things do well in cooler temperatures unheated. They do perfectly fine. You do have some issues, though, with some things when you go over to the hotter end of the spectrum. Some plants that have worked well for me in warmer tanks, like my zebra pleco tank, it's an 80 degree and above tank. Pogostem stellatus octopus actually did really well in that tank, which kind of surprised me. It was a trial thing. I've done Anubias in that tank. I've still got Anubias in that tank, and it has done well. It's actually flowered in that. Well, I guess it would be flowered in that tank. Awesome. It's shot the stem up and put the little white coney looking flower thing up. Yeah, I'm that plant expert. I'm trying to think what else I've tried in there. Some things that I have found that do not like warm water a lot of times are the Java moss and things. Can you get them to survive? Sometimes, but they really prefer the not really hot. And they do really well in cool water as well.
Cobumba does real well.
Yeah.
Cobumba Carolina does really well in cooler water, at least for me.
Right. And I have seen that one fall apart in warmer water. Again, these are just my personal experiences in my tanks at home. But there's just some of the things we could definitely do. Like I said, we could probably do a whole hour just on that. Yeah. We may in the future.
Maybe that'll be next week.
Absolutely. But Melissa Jeswald, a huge thank you for that $15 super chat. Seriously, not required, not expected, but very, very much appreciate you, Melissa, and all the support you've always had for the channel. So thank you so much for that.
Plants are the newest thing for me in the hobby. And I would love Bentley because he's so smart on the stuff.
Yes.
And I would love to someday try to take the classes, on plants. So maybe someday there will be a convention somewhere where they'll just have lectures on plants. I don't know.
Definitely. Interesting. Yes, I would love one day to be able to claim the title of Master Aquatic Horticulturist.
Oh my gosh.
And I plan to. So Brandon Looney Tunes Fan 2000, congrats on your 100 subscribers. It's a milestone and a step in the right direction. I've got another channel in the near future I'm not going to talk about tonight, but I'll be working on. So I am very much looking forward to going through those milestones again. But we'll talk about that at a different time if we ever talk about it, because it's not fish related. So I'm going to grab one more question here, and then I'm going to jump into how we stock this tank, this time acquiring new knowledge method or philosophy process. Hatchery Man, how's it going? Says Fish Room Fever. I have an 8 by 8 foot enclosed room in the garage. It's getting cool. What type of space heater do you all recommend? So most of them already have it built in. But I would definitely make sure you have the appropriate safety features in place, regardless of which type you go with, whether it's, the coil ones, you have the anti-tip where they shut themselves off and all that. But make sure you've got all the proper safety steps in place for whatever type of heater you're adding to that room. And then you've got a couple different things. You can go for whole room temperature and worry about what you're getting the room to. Simple answer, I use the oil space heaters. They've worked really well for me. They look kind of like a radiator on wheels. And I find that those have worked extremely well, pretty efficient. You don't have to worry about that buzzing, humming from the coils kicking on. You don't have to worry about I mean, it puts off heat and you could burn yourself on it, but it's not. I wouldn't worry about the dog laying up against it as much as I would one of those coil heaters that maybe the coils are off and the dog lays against it, or the cat, and then that thing kicks on and it gets really hot really quick, because they keep more of an overall long-term standard heat flowing from them. But those are the ones I use and enjoy.
Yeah.
You can also get into the point where you can add in like an Inkbird or different types of thermometers where you can have the temperature probe going either in the room or in a tank to where it turns on when the temperature is not sufficient. And then once that temperature probe detects that, we'll say the room as the appropriate temperature, it cuts the power to that heater so that heater can't turn on. And then when it needs it, you can program in a range on there. It'll flip it back on, flip it back off. What about you, Ed?
I bought the one that looks like the radiator also, and I love it. I absolutely. The biggest negative is whenever there's a little blackout of any type, it shuts off. So you have to get on it and just push the power button, and it'll just, because it won't come back on itself. I don't know if there's things you can buy a smart plug that maybe do. I don't know, but and what I did was I went to Lowe's and I looked up what they had. I did, I knew how many square foot I needed it to heat, because that's important, because they say that on the box. And I went for the best review, because sometimes the most expensive aren't the best ones.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I paid $80 for mine, or $88. I mean, that's awesome. And I mean, it keeps my fish room always between 76 and 78, depending on where the fish tanks are, if they're on the top or the bottom.
Absolutely. And we're both using those in much larger spaces than an 8 foot by 8 foot enclosed. And an 8 by 8 enclosed, that should work perfect for you. But look around, see what's going to fit in with what you've got going on and what your style is that you're looking for. They're not super easy to conceal. Not that you'd want to tuck a heater behind stuff anyways, but they do kind of stand out a little bit. But I hope that helped you out, Hatchery Man. And I appreciate you being here, and thank you for the question. I know we've got some other super chats and questions and comments, and I will definitely get to those. But I'm going to jump into that's tank and jump into the second part of the tank method.
Can I mention one?
Yeah, go for it, buddy. By all means.
It's just, I wanted to just throw this one bit of knowledge out, because Bob Steenfott, he bought the ones that mount to the wall, and he said they were junk. Okay. So don't do that. Okay, that's all I want.
Yeah, absolutely. So we filled our tank, and again, this is referencing time requiring new knowledge, T.A.N.K. Same thing with our aquariums, our tanks at home with our fish in them. What do we want to do? We want to stock that tank. This is where you get a little bit more in depth. So this is where you get into kind of the specialized, more focused knowledge. And this is going to vary for everyone, So if you're Ed, pre having 4,000 trillion guppies, but if you're a guppy guy like Ed, you want to be a guppy guy. You go, okay, well, let me take some time and actually learn more about guppies. Maybe I want to, first I'll learn the particulars with them, lifespan expectancy, nutrition requirements, that type of stuff. What does that particular fish need? And then, maybe you look into line breeding. You're getting into particulars. You're looking into, okay, I want to create my own new strain of guppy. How do I go about doing that? Focusing on genetics. Or I want to learn plecos. I want to be the leopard frog pleco guy. I want to be the bristle nose person. I want to learn how to breed bristle nose. I want to keep Neocaridina shrimp. What do I need to do for that? I want to be the rainbow fish guy, the killifish guy. These are all different things that we can take and we can stock that tank with. I saved you the horrible pictures. I was going to pull the dry erase board out and draw the little fish for stocking the tank and all that and have fun with it, but I saved y'all the terrible drawing. But yeah, we want to do things like that. Maybe you want to learn about plants and plant propagation, which we touched on just a moment ago. Not so much propagation, but talking plants. I want to be the Java moss person. I want to learn this thing. This is where you're getting that more specialized information. You're stocking your tank, your knowledge base with it. A lot of things. It could be, I want to learn how to cultivate live foods. I've not cultivated a lot of live foods, but I've done some. But this is where you kind of get into specializing in things, if you will. And it's as deep as you want to go with it. Lighting. There's basic lighting. Oh, I'm going to put a light on a tank. But you can get into, especially when you're talking plants, which I'm a huge fan of having a planted tank. I recommend planted tanks for everyone that, if you can do it, do it. It's gotten so much easier to do and so much more affordable that I really recommend it. It gives you a good ecosystem in your tank. Aquascaping, that's another one. We're going to stock the tank with some aquascaping knowledge. And again, aquascaping is one of those things where we can look at the same thing and you can like it and I cannot, and that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. But there are some basics that you can learn about aquascape. Your rules of three and things of that nature. Some basic knowledge that's good to have if you're going to try an aquascape on how to build an aquascape that's visually appealing overall to most people for the most part. Um, and I'm gonna speed this up a little bit so I can get down into the chat because I haven't had to spend much time with y'all. We got 87 people watching. I appreciate y'all very, very much. Thank you all for hitting the thumbs up button. Let YouTube know that you're enjoying this. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It is free for you. It does definitely help me out. We're trying to hit a milestone of our own. We're trying to hit 3,000 subscribers. That would
Woohoo!
be amazing if we could do that before the end of the year. And there's a new series I've got coming that I think y'all will like that will also help us with that goal as well. But yeah, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. I will say this. I know that only 28% of my subscribers have notifications set to all. And
Wow.
I know a lot of you say that you don't get notifications. YouTube, I'm sure, plays a part in that, but just check, make sure you've got it marked on there. That's enough for that spiel. Um, so the tank process. Another thing we do with our tanks, we top our tanks off, and that's very much what this is. Again, not here to instruct, here to hopefully inspire, but keeping that knowledge fresh. Trying to add a little bit to it here and there. Going to a live stream once a week, watching a couple videos about something, just trying to top that tank off with a little bit of extra knowledge. Um, and maybe refreshing yourself on some stuff that you haven't really thought of in a long time. You're like, oh yeah, that I kind of forgot about that. Um, and of course, water changes, and this is something that you're not going to do a whole lot with this tank, hopefully. But water changes would be one of those things where we put that water in, that basic knowledge. We found out that maybe that wasn't the best way to do things, or maybe that wasn't totally accurate. Um, Fish don't grow to the size of the tank. So we're going to water change that knowledge out, and we're going to put that new, fresh, basic knowledge, that new water in there, and do that water change on that tank. So that's just kind of some basics. There are a lot of things that could go into that, but I feel like if you fill this tank, you take the time to acquire new knowledge as a hobbyist, particularly as a beginner hobbyist, but also, you know, intermediate. I don't want to say expert, we'll say experienced level. Somebody that's been doing it for a long time, has kept a lot of fish. Um, One, it's going to help you. You're getting into the hobby, you learn the basics and you learn these things. It's going to help you be more successful. It's going to help you spend less money. It's going to help you kill less fish. It's going to help you enjoy it more, which is why we're doing it. We're doing it for enjoyment. Um, I don't see how that could be a bad thing. I really don't. So I hope that's helpful. I'm sure you all have some wonderful ideas on how we can add some more water to the tank and some things we can stock it with. I'm going to jump into the chat down here and we'll roll on through here. We got Stephen P. 2003 Aquatics. Excuse me. Welcome to the team, buddy. Welcome to the Fish Room Fever family. Appreciate you becoming a member. Welcome to Team Snowball. Thanks, my friend. It's always good to see you in here. I always appreciate your support. I appreciate you becoming a member. We are working our way towards that 100 member goal. We are not quite there yet. I think we're at 72 members now, with you joining on there, maybe 73. But for me, that's a huge accomplishment. I never expected to have members on this channel. So the fact that so many of you have signed up, especially given the size that we're at on the channel, that's really a blessing, and I thank you all so very, very much for it. L99 with a $10 super sticker saying thank you with that awesome exercise pair. Thank you. Not required. Thank you so much, but very, very much appreciate you. Always good to see you. You've been hanging out with Fish Room Fever family for a long time, and I thank you for that. Thank you for the $10 super chat. And you're always welcome. Anytime we can help with anything, that is what we're here for. Um, Delilah's critters says, wait, there are things that aren't fish related. There are a few things in life that are not fish related, surprisingly. Killer Kitty 08, how's it going? Thank you for that $2 super sticker with the awesome little fox dancing with the little hearts behind it. Appreciate that, my friend. Hope you're doing wonderful today. Thank you for that super sticker. Drink water. Good to see you again. All right, let me scroll up here. Chat just jumped on me. Now we've got some highlighted questions and comments. The Zen Ginger says, Fisherman Fever, do the oil heaters pull less energy? Maybe they wouldn't blow my generator fuses. They do. So I've not pulled out all of my meters and done all the testing. Let me preface with that. I've not pulled meters out and tested it. But they seem to. And I think a big part of that is when those the coil style heaters, and what I mean is when you're looking at it, you see all the bright red coils when the thing's on, just simplified terms. When something powers on, that's generally when it takes the most energy. That's when it has the biggest kick in current, is when something powers on. Fun fact of the day, as I understand it, I'll preface with that, I guess. The reason that your fan, like you turn on a box fan and it starts at 3 and it goes down, starts high and not low, is because it requires that extra energy current to get that thing kicked off. So, just kind of taking that as an example, taking that into consideration. I don't feel like the oil heaters take nearly as much kicking on and off, and would probably do well. I would look into it. You could probably Google, generator approved or generator recommended heater. You could even do generator approved oil heaters, space heater, and find some things that would definitively say yes or no. But I've not really seen.
If I was a gambling man, I would say that she would save a lot of electricity.
Probably.
Because that's why I did it.
I will say this. Here's my official testing. Before I switched to almost entirely sponge filters, I used to have a lot of things plugged in. A lot of things. Before I switched over to, general room heating versus... there used to be a lot of heaters and a lot of plugs in everywhere. A lot of individual pumps, a lot of hang-on back filters and canisters, and a lot of things plugged in. I have many times flipped a breaker with those coil style heaters. I can't recall having done that in one of those oil heaters with the same setup running. But I digress. All right, let's roll on through here. Get these highlighted questions and comments. Paul Sotero, how's it going, Paul? Appreciate you being here. Another awesome member. Says, James, having plants in your goes a long way to keeping your water parameters stable. Absolutely, it does. It really, really does. I feel like I missed something. I read it in my mind. It was about oxygen in the water. There it was. Melissa Jeswald. I'm sorry. No, I didn't get that one. Did I? Melissa Jeswald super chat. Switch to an aqua clear, from an aqua clear to a CJ. I know I read it in my head. I don't know that I read it out loud. So I'm going to read it again because I lost myself when the chat jumped. Melissa Jeswald. Let me take a sip of water real quick. Getting parched here. Okay, Melissa Jeswald, thank you for the $15 super chat. Says, I switched an aqua clear to a CJ filter in a planted tank. It killed all my guppies overnight. Well, I am sorry to hear that. I did some research, and apparently, plants remove oxygen during the night. Ideas. So, yes, plants, being photosynthetic, go through a different process when they are receiving light versus when they are not receiving light. The simplest terms for that, basically to solve that problem, if you will, to make sure that your tank stays oxygenated, I have always recommended having an air stone or some sort of thing bubbling in your tank for surface agitation. That's always been a recommendation of mine. And I have nothing against like the Lucas Brett's setups. I've got one on the desk right now that's got no filtration. There's no oxygen running into it. It's just got lots of plants and it's got shrimp in it. And it does great. But generally speaking, I've seen a lot of people that if they had had an air stone in their tank, would not have suffered a fish loss. Um, and there are different ways that you can hide it or make it look pretty. You can use the black airline tubing to help that stand out, not quite so much. You can tuck it behind a plant. You've got lots of plants in there, so you can get that hidden, but that is going to help you to ensure stuff like that doesn't happen. I've always been a fan of having that airstone in the tank. 98 people here, so awesome of you to be here. Appreciate that. But yeah, no, that is definitely a thing, if you will. The process almost reverses, I guess is a good way to put it, for plants at night versus during the day. They go leaching one thing and intaking one thing to leaching and intaking the opposites, essentially. So it is definitely something to keep in mind that you don't have. Oh, go ahead.
I haven't noticed any oxygen loss at night though.
Well,
I've cut my power or my air off about 5 months ago now.
Right.
And I've been just going plants, and everything is just going crazy good.
And it generally does. It generally does. But it's always those one-offs. That's this thing happened, and how can I avoid it? I was talking to somebody. We were troubleshooting a problem one time, and it was something I would have never figured out. Turned out their cat had actually kicked the CO2 full blast. And it's like I would have never been able to diagnose that your cat had your CO2 cranked all the way up. So it's a weird one-offs.
Well, my they're yours too. The wild caught mollies, they require lots of water changes, and I've put a filter on them because they weren't doing well with just the plants, and so I put a little canister, or not canister, hang off the back, and they just do amazing with that extra little flow.
Definitely, and get you that.
I think they need oxygen, a lot extra oxygen. Definitely. And then I have one tank that's got way too many guppies in it, and I have an air stone in that tank because it's overpacked.
Right. I would even, think of a bait bucket. If you've got a 5-gallon bucket with some bait fish in it, and you've got a dozen fish in there, they're going to have a lot more time in that and a lot more oxygen supply than if you've got 5 dozen fish in there. It's all about the necessities of your specific situation. HSPS's Tank Tribe, very, very simple, plain and to the point. Absolutely, I love it. It says more air, less plants, more surface agitation. And maybe not even necessarily less plants. If you're planning on having that set up, maybe less plants. But one thing you could do, if you're doing, I'm assuming that's the internal filter completely submerged, angle the flow of the output to where you're getting surface agitation. That's another thing. I've always, if I have canister filters, I have always made it to where I'm getting some surface agitation, even if I didn't have an air stone, especially if I didn't have an air stone. I've seen a lot of people that have switched filters, not necessarily the specifics you're talking about, but even people switching to canisters, and then they have zero surface agitation, and they're like, I came in and all my Oscars were up at the surface gasping for air because I had all these big fish in here sucking up oxygen, and they had little to no surface agitation to be able to reoxygenate that water. So yeah, if you can get some sort of flow directed at it, a really teeny tiny power head. You can get a super teeny tiny power head for just a couple bucks on Amazon and just stick it in there and have it angled up at the top. You could have it back behind all your plants. I'm doing the motion off camera like y'all can see me, but you could have it back behind all of your plants. Just have it pointed upward so that you're getting some agitation at the surface. But if you can, just angle whatever filtration you've got. If you can get some flow upward for surface agitation, that's going to help you out significantly.
Stephen P. mentions the spray bars. I absolutely love them.
I do too. I like spray bars. I've built my own spray bars for a couple things.
Now, do you notice, does the spray bars help kill the duckweed?
So somebody's probably going to get mad at me for this because everybody says just get a little water on top of the duckweed and it'll die. It's gone. It's done. I actually created almost a tumbling waterfall scenario to where the duckweed was just constantly getting submerged. There was so much water hitting the surface, pushing it under, and it definitely didn't get rid of the duckweed. If it did help get rid of the duckweed, it was insignificant to the point that it wasn't noticeable. But I've also, and I'm not saying they're wrong, or I'm not saying it didn't happen. I've also heard people say that they sprayed duckweed down with a spray bottle full of water and it killed the duckweed off. In my experience, I haven't had that work. I've had to manually remove it if I didn't want duckweed in a tank.
I want that duckweed. I want the easily killed duckweed.
Right? Absolutely. All right.
I have the duckweed that doesn't die. You know, you clean it all out, and there's a piece that's dried up on the side that turns into a million the next day.
Yep, absolutely. All right. I think I'm back where I was. Let's see. T-Bone's Fishies, good day. Good to see you. Appreciate you being here, my friends. And thank you for dropping that link for the memberships. Eduardo Antonio Orengo Costa says, a few days ago, I went to my LFS and impulse bought 2 pairs of checkerboard cichlids. I had no idea how to keep these fish. I automatically searched out their best life upkeep to be continued. Absolutely. So I will also say that happens. We experienced, not experienced. We've all bought fish. It's like, I've got to have this fish. I need to have this fish. One thing I will generally do is, most of the time we have one of these in our pocket, so we can do some research at least. But I mean, you did the right thing. Like you said, I automatically searched out their best life upkeep. You went and you found out what you needed to. A lot of people don't do that. They go and they impulse buy a fish and they go, I know what I'm doing. I've kept fish before. Or even worst case scenario, they don't know what they're doing and they haven't kept fish before. And they just buy the fish and it looks pretty. I'm throwing it in this tank. And that's where you can run into problems, especially dependent upon the source. I've been in fish stores where fish weren't even labeled properly. The piranha pacu, or look, this is a zebra pleco at a really good deal. That's not an L46. I'll put it that way. So it also goes back to knowing what you're getting. All right.
Paul mentions he thinks a shrimp net is the best way to get rid of the duckweed. My problem is that I have lots of fry always at the top. So what I use is a hair pick, but it never gets rid of everything.
Absolutely. I've used the hair pick. I've got a couple different sizes. I've used the little net. One of the easiest ways to get rid of it for me is via drainage. So I've taken, let me put the lid on before I do this. Don't want to turn this upside down without the lid on it. So I've taken like a water bottle and then an upside down power head, similar to how I do my water polishing setup. But then you just take and you cut the top off and you put some slits, and you can vary those just depending upon what size. Like if you've got fry, you want to keep them fairly thin, but you need it at least to be thick enough for the duckweed to get through. And you have it so you've got water draining into the top of this thing. So maybe your tank water level is here and that constant water level is down here, but it's draining. So it's creating that suction. So it's getting the surface drain off. It's skimming the surface essentially. It's a DIY surface skimmer in essence. Surface skimming has always given me the best end result. But generally, I try not to have duckweed in tanks that I don't want duckweed in, and it's working pretty good at this point.
I could say that.
It's where I want it, and it's not where I don't. So,
in my tank with all large fish, I'll take the egg crate. You know the egg crate?
Yeah.
And I've got all floating plants, big floating plants, but I push them all underwater, and I can shop vac it out.
Yep.
Because I know I don't have to worry about fry in those tanks.
A shop vac is one of those, I want to say experience level secrets that once you get to a certain point in fish keeping, you're like, I just need a shop vac. I had somebody that posted the other day on a different format, and they were like, what's the best way to get all my substrate out? I'm moving my tanks. And I'm like, a shop vac. It doesn't matter if it's sand, gravel. I've used it on all of the above and shop vac that stuff out. You know, it's got so many uses, and it's nice to have if you do have a leak or a tank bust. Back to the chat here. Stephen P 2003 Aquatic says, I canceled a membership to join up. I won't say which one, LOL.
Oh.
Bless your heart for that. Bless your heart for that. I appreciate it. I really do. That wasn't necessary, but man, that means a lot to me. It really, really does. I hope I can bring you that value. Since you did that, I will say, make sure you check out the members only stuff. I am happy that today the content I posted, YouTube actually showed to some people. Every once in a while, I'll post something and like one member will see it, and that's when I know YouTube hasn't told them and it's not popping up a notification. But very much appreciated. Stephen P 2003, love you for that. All right, let's see if I can get caught up here. Mike's Aquatics and Things, welcome to the team, buddy. Welcome. Thank you for becoming a member of the Fish Room Fever family, becoming a member. This is around 75. I'll have to check the actual number here in just a minute. There, Eduardo Antonio Orengo Costa was saying, this was following up that previous comment. Learned about their best life parameters and watched several vids on them. They are doing well and looking outstanding. Tank method works once you put the interest for best life of your fish. Absolutely, 100%. And this is not a shocking revelation of this being a new thing that's groundbreaking. This is just me officially labeling the process that a lot of us have taken with the tank method, time acquiring new knowledge. 99 people, so close to 100, so close to triple digits. I appreciate each and every one of you.
You were at
fluctuating.
104.
Oh, very nice. So I ran some off. I'm sorry for that. My apologies. But Mike, thank you again for becoming a member. Very much appreciate you, brother. T-Bones Fishy's been a member for 11 months, using his member message there. Says, been away for weeks. What happened to your goatee? So I got rid of it. This is kind of how I used to do things before YouTube. The beard was seasonal. I stopped shaving it because of YouTube, if you will, because of the image to uphold for the viewers. But I finally decided I just wanted to go back to the old look. So that's how we got there. And T-Bones, thank you. T-Bones Fishies, thank you for being a member. And glad to see you again, buddy. All right, rolling down through here. Again, if you've got questions or comments and you put the @ symbol in front of Fish Room Fever, that does highlight it for me so it stands out, because it's a lot easier for me to grab those things than to try and keep track of every single message, especially because a lot of the other messages aren't necessarily intended for me. We have a lot of good chat going on during the live streams in the chat, so I let you all, I don't say let you all, I keep my nose out of that. I don't try and like keep up with everything that's back and forth conversation. Scuba Steve-O's Aquatics, welcome to the team, my friend. Got to meet Scuba Steve-O at Aquashella. That was awesome. Hoping to see you again soon, my friend. And thank you for joining the Fish Room Fever family. Again, try and give you all some value for that. Give something back. There is the behind the scenes content, but I think the fan favorite, new members let me know, I think the fan favorite is the members only emojis. You can use those in the chat as well as when you reply to comments. So enjoy those, my friend, and be on the lookout. I'm trying to post a lot of behind the scenes stuff for you all in the members only section. So I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the family. Biscotti Nanya says, did you enter Alex's aquascaping competition? Have a good stream though, driving and lurking. So I did not. I have not entered.
Oh, can I hear about it?
I don't. So I don't know all the details. I know that he's doing a thing, but I don't really have an aquascape that I'm planning to do to enter. I'll put it that way. I've got some things planned out, but the timeline on doing those things, I don't know matches with that.
We can talk more about that in my stream too, because mine's a lot more off topic.
Let's see. Paul Stero says, James, I put a Venturi on the return from the canister filter in the discus tank. That this increases the dissolved oxygen in the warm water of the discus tank. Absolutely. And of course, for anybody that doesn't know, I guess this would be kind of a basics that would fall under your tank method. Just something to know in terms of putting the water in the tank. The warmer water is, the less oxygen it holds. So you definitely want to, like with my zebras, or like with your discus tank. The zebras enjoy hot, fast-moving water that's highly oxygenated. So doing things like that, setting up a Venturi system. basically where you're sucking air into that water column as it's getting pushed through the tube, just in the simplest terms possible. Absolutely, definitely helps with that dissolved oxygen, and it's a great idea, Paul. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. Roll on down here. Alice B, how's it going? Alice says, I have a plastic spray bar with high flow. Is there any way to get the flow to go slower? I'm worried drilling the holes bigger will crack it. So, on a lot of canisters, you can adjust the flow with the ball valve. I say that hesitantly because I don't necessarily recommend it, because then you could put back pressure on the system, especially if you're not familiar with doing it. Two things can happen. Well, several things, but two particular things can happen that are not good when you put too much back pressure on a canister filter setup. One of them is you can burn that motor out with too much back pressure. The other thing is that back pressure can potentially blow out your seal, especially if you've got a weak seal, that additional back pressure, because typically when you've got a canister, it's kind of got some suction to it along with the clamps or whatever, but it's got some suction kind of pulling it together. When you put that back pressure, not only does it relieve that suction, but it can also cause it to kind of push apart a little bit if you get too much back pressure going. Sorry, I don't know why my nose itches. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to wiggle my nose on camera. Maybe I can stop poking it. My nose started itching for some reason. You're almost better to not necessarily drill maybe, but to open the spray bar holes up just a little bit. You can get, I don't think I have one handy without doing digging, but they have little files. Like you go to Harbor Freight, they usually have them for like $2 or $3. They don't have all different types, but one of them in particular, maybe about as long as a pencil, really, really thin, but it's completely round, and it widens out from the tip. So you can kind of stick it in there and you can just kind of twirl it a little bit and just kind of grind the hole out a little bit bigger. You're filing it open just a little more. So you're not actually trying to cut it and, worrying about that.
Can you use a Dremel?
You can use it. Yep. You can use a Dremel. Ed's got to kick the power tools on during the show. I love it. You could use a Dremel. If you've got a Dremel, absolutely. Just, put one of the filing type tips on there. That's going to be my advice for you. Absolutely. So that would be my thoughts on the easiest way to do it without putting back pressure on a pump and without actually cutting, if you will. Verdul, thank you so much. Verdul, it's great to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I was mentioning to type the @ symbol. Yeah, and even if you put my full name on there, Fish Room Fever, that will highlight for the most part as well. It makes it a lot easier to find you all's comments. My chat's about to jump up. There it is. Let me get back to where I was. I was at 10:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Timestamp, for those of you wondering where I'm at. What time is it? Ed's got a show here in about 5 minutes, so let me get to moving. Here. All right. Thank you, Zen, again for posting that link. It says 103 people on yours. That's awesome. Nice. Finn Wiggles, thank you so much for that, my friend. Not necessary, but I really do appreciate you, buddy. Not only became a member recently, but on a $10 super sticker out there with the flying Superman pair, superhero. Very much appreciate you. Thank you for that $10 super sticker. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your support. Delilah's Critter says, such a young, fresh face, James, at Fish Room Fever. Appreciate that, Delilah. Eduardo Antonio Aringo Costa upgraded his membership to Team Snowball. Eduardo, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you, dude. That means a lot. I know that's doubling your membership, is what that comes down to. It's from the $199 to the $499. So I'm at a point where I'm trying to under promise and over deliver, but I am working on something for the member tiers. I've got something figured out for the Zebra member level, and I'm trying to work that down into a little something special for you all at the Snowball level, at the $5 a month level. Because that's $5. $2 is also very much appreciated. But for someone like Eduardo, you just jumped categories or whatever. I want to try and give you just something to say, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. And then also working something for everybody else coming in at that Bristle Nose level 2, because that's where most of y'all are rocking it at, and I appreciate each and every one of you all. I really, really do.
Maybe James and I will do something special on Saturday, something dorky for that show.
Absolutely.
We don't have anything going Saturday night, so maybe we'll get together and do something goofy.
That would be fun. That would be fun. Sorry, I was reading this question here. Son of a Quack says, I have a bamboo plus a mono shrimp in a tank that I haven't water changed in a while. The nitrates are a bit high and the pH is 7.6. Can I move them to a nearby tank with less nitrates and 7.2 pH? So, without knowing the specifics, what I would recommend instead of moving them to a different tank, first off, there is such thing as nitrate shock, meaning that if the nitrates are really, really high and you suck them all out of the tank and you get it really, really low, really, really fast, that can actually be damaging on your fish. I'm sure invertebrates just as well, though I haven't studied it in invertebrates quite as much. 0.4 difference in pH with shrimp, that can mean a lot with shrimp. With fish, I'm usually not too worried about it. With shrimp, that can be a shocker on them. My recommendation would be, in my opinion and my experience, to do a small water change daily. Do a 10% water change once a day to slowly but efficiently bring down those nitrates. And then I'm hoping that's a possibility. I know you said you haven't changed water in a while. That could be because maybe you've been out of town on business. Maybe you haven't been able to. Assuming you're able to, do those small water changes at regular intervals. If you don't feel comfortable doing it every day or you're not able to, do it every other day. I'm definitely not recommending a huge water change, and I wouldn't necessarily move them unless it looks like they're in a situation, watching their behavior that they need out of that tank now. That's really the only time I ever go, okay, you need to put it in a different tank and deal with the problem, is if it's a disease or if it's something parameter-wise that you look at it and you go, that fish is struggling. It needs help now, or shrimp in this case. If it's like that and you're like, I don't know if these guys are going to make it till tomorrow, you could do that. I would definitely do a drip acclimation, not a super slow drip, but maybe take some airline tubing, kind of tie a knot in it and halfway pinch it off so it's got water flow. That way you're not slamming them from high nitrates in a 7.6 to lower nitrates in a 7.2. That would be my thoughts. Ed?
Oh, I totally agree. I'm sorry, I was reading other questions.
You're good,
but
buddy.
no, I do agree, though, that you don't want to throw it off real bad. I mean, we got those mollies from that creek, or not that creek, but what was the pond called? It was basically like salt water, but it was crazy. Mineral.
Yeah.
The mineral
water.
Spring.
Yeah.
And we took those poor mollies and put them in good water, and they just fell apart.
Yeah.
I had to flood them with a ton of salt and get them back, and we saved like 11 out of the 110 we had. So that was rough.
Absolutely.
But we didn't know they were going to be ours.
Yeah, no. That just kind of happened. All right, let me see if I can get through these before we jump heads real quick here. Finn Wiggles, congrats on finding that blue shrimp emoji. I saw you're happy about that. I'm glad. MNC Aquatic says, thoughts on raising wild gambusia / mosquito fish? Go for it. They're awesome. I've got some still from the Florida father fish collecting trip I went on with Ed and Kenny E from T.A.N.K Aquatics. Exactly. That's the same trip that we got those mollies on. Yeah, I think they're awesome. Yeah, you could go and buy them from the feeder fish section if you've got a pet store locally that has them there, and I've seen them there before. But I think it's a fun little project. I enjoyed it. Trying to convert them over and breed them and all that stuff, taking something from the wild to doing my own thing with it at home. It's fun. If you want to do it, go for it. That's what makes the hobby great.
They'll destroy your molly or your guppies that you have in your tank.
They definitely
not
can.
wild
Absolutely.
ones.
All right.
They live in a world of murder. I don't know.
Absolutely. Mr. Fish, sir, you're 100% correct on that, Brad. He says, you all equals y'all in the South. Thank y'all for being here. Come on down. All right. I think I grabbed the highlighted on the way. No, it jumped just a little bit, but I'm so close to having everything caught up. Grabbing highlighted comments. New local Austin, how's it going? says, fish room fever. How do I know if I have fish room fever? So, if you're asking, you probably do. Fish room fever is basically when you've taken multi-tank syndrome or multi-tank addiction, and you've gotten to the point that you have multi-tank addiction so bad it's actually spreading out from your one fish room that you had your multi-tank addiction grow in, and now you've got multi-tank addiction in multiple areas. That's when you've got fish room fever. That's exactly what that is. So I'm not going to diagnose you with anything. I prefer people self-diagnose with that. But that's how you know if you have fish room fever. Also, just hanging out with 100 people got fish room fever right now, right? Let's see. Killer Kitty says, "You're here at Fish Room Fever, so therefore you have fish room fever." Absolutely. Like I tell y'all every week when we sign off, don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. Let's see. Skipper's Cream says, "So I have a question. What would you stock a 15 cube with?" I've not done a 15 cube fresh. I have done like the 10, 12-ish, so I'm close. And then I've got a bigger one that I'm also doing. I really, really like doing the cubes with a nice nano aquascape, a nice aquascape in them. Definitely some plants. Get you a little bit of wood in there and some rock work. Whatever your style is, whatever your aquascaping style is. And then I like nano fish and shrimp is one of my favorites. You could do a betta in there. I've done that in like my 7-gallon cubes. I enjoy the bettas in the, really nicely done, in my opinion, nicely aquascaped smaller cubes. But a 15-gallon, I would say find you a really pretty color of Neocaridina that you enjoy, and some nano fish that would contrast with that. And I think you're really going to like it. For example, I've taken the blue dreams, the blue Neocaridina shrimp, and I've contrasted them with Ember Tetras before. And that color variation and the activity that you get. I really, really enjoy that. So me personally, that's what I would do. What about you, Ed?
You know what? I did it again.
All right, Bob Steenfott.
Steve-O made me laugh. He said he's got it so bad he's got tanks at other people's houses.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I know you were talking about the cube, though. Right?
Yeah, 15-gallon cube stocking recommendations.
Yeah, I would do shrimps or a betta. I have one of those exactly. I've got one betta in there and 4 black tetras. And I did it so the betta would have somebody to chase. Mm-hmm. Well, no, actually, I had one black tetra all by itself for years. Well, like a year. I got him when a store closed down. I just bought the tank, and he was swimming around in the tank when I brought it home. So I put it in there, and they were like buddies. And so then I got a couple more so he would have other friends. But now they are like, I don't think the betta knows he's a betta anymore. Because like I was feeding them yesterday, and they were all just face to face having fun. He used to chase these guys. So
there we go. Robert Miyashiro says, "I've got a 75-gallon guppy tank with corridors and shrimp. And can you recommend a centerpiece fish? Thank you."
What size tank?
A 75-gallon guppy tank with corridors and shrimp. So this is going to be an awkward centerpiece recommendation, and I'll explain why I'm giving you this at first. Typically, when you think 75-gallon centerpiece, it's going to be something a little bit bigger, but that means it's going to have a bigger mouth on it, which means it's probably going to devour those guppies and those shrimp. So what I would suggest is to go to whatever pleco site, Catfish Planet, look at a nice pleco that doesn't get too big, but would go well in there. You could get a really, really pretty good sized pleco in a 75-gallon tank. And people are like, "Oh, pleco, that's not showpiece. That's going to hide all the time." They do hide sometimes. It all depends on your layout and that particular fish. But I have found more often than not, if they're happy, you see them a lot. And you can also design it to where their hiding spot is visible. You could take some driftwood and you have it kind of angled up so that they've got this hiding spot, if you will, but you can still see it from the front of the tank. I see my vampire pleco every single day because that's his hiding spot, is under some driftwood that I have angled to where he's still visible. I still look at him all the time. Idea. So that's going to be my suggestion, is to find a really, really nice pleco that you can put in there that you really enjoy. It's got some good colors that you enjoy. You could do I don't know, a gold nugget.
How about a blue or green phantom? Because they would really
You could.
stick out too.
You
So
could.
when people are looking, they won't blend in as much.
Yeah. Find one that you enjoy. I could give you my preference, but yeah, there are a lot of really beautiful ones out there that get a good size for a 75-gallon tank. Um, I personally have not had enough issue to make it noticeable of having plecos eat shrimp and or guppies. I know people have mentioned issues in the past. I've never had one that's done that. Now, maybe if a shrimp died off, would a pleco munch on it? Probably, yeah. If it's sucking around on the bottom and it finds a dead shrimp, yeah.
That's probably good.
Um, but that's going to be my recommendation. What about you, Ed? I know we're getting into your time here.
Yeah, but let's do this one because it's really fun. I love the pleco idea, man. That was great.
Well, thank you.
You know, depending on what caliber of guppy it is, like if it's just like a mutt guppy tank, maybe you could still do like one big angel or something like that. It's going to take off or pick off some of the babies, but if you might have a problem with that anyway. If it has too many, I don't know how many guppies. If they're fancy guppies that you can take to a fish store and trade, don't do it. But if they're just like generic guppies that you're only going to get 10 cents for or something, it'd be awesome. And It's not going to eat them all. It's probably going to eat the babies if it does, because they have small mouths. And there's some really cool looking angels out there.
Most definitely. All right. Let's see if I can wrap this up so we can not cut into Ed's time too much. Good news, bad news. Rico Stan will not be live tonight. That's the bad news. But the good news is that means if we go over on Ed's time a little bit, he doesn't have a time set that he has to be off of there, so we can make that up. I do want to grab this. Better late than never. I love it. Love that name. Says Exodons with Bishers. Bashirs, Bickers, Bikers, however you prefer to pronounce it. What's my opinion? My opinion is going to be no. Having Exodons, I've got Exodons in this tank right here, and having Bishers, I've got 3 ornates over in this tank that are about that long, about that big around, big old
about
fat guys.
Long.
Yeah. And I've got Senegals as well. Got a banded Bisher down here in this tank. I would not. I absolutely would not. The bucktooth tetra, the Exodon paradoxus, that fish is designed to eat scales. Its jaw, and in fact, if you look, they're actually left-handed, right-handed in terms of their head tilts to a particular way or angles slightly based upon what side they have lived their life attacking from. That fish is designed to rip pieces of other fish off, and they're not scared to do it.
They're so fast.
They are fast. That would be more like a death of 1,000 cuts for a Bisher. My big worry comes from these Bishers. I've kept other fish with them in the past, and again, this is part of being a fish keeper. Things change, and you have to change accordingly. I came in the other day, and Felix, the fat boy in this tank, he had an African cichlid in his mouth. Couldn't eat the thing. He ended up letting it go, and that African cichlid lost some scales. It's fine. It's not got any infection or anything going on. But he just decided, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to try and eat this other fish. So that they could definitely take out these Exodons, no problem, if they decided to. So I wouldn't mix those two, just on my personal experience.
You might end up with all the Exodons gone after the night's up. Yeah. But you're going to have a lot of holes during the daytime on your Bishers.
Yep. So. And especially if you think they like to attack around gill plates, the Exodons do.
Oh, gosh.
A lot of times the Bishers still have that excess, we'll just call it, hanging out of the gill plate as they're growing. So that's probably going to get knocked off quickly. Just my thoughts. Horrible. Just my thoughts.
My ornates are just so aggressive. I'm afraid to put them with my banded Bisher because I think they'll attack him too, or her. So they just get to live together for the rest of their lives.
Definitely. All right. Last couple things here. I'm going to grab these real quick so we can get over to Ed's stream. It jumped on me. Paul, I see that super chat there. I'm going to get it. All right. There we were.
Maybe I could put a pleco with them. Something really heavy duty. because
Yeah,
I had the giant auto cat in there, and they were chewing up them, and they were kind of armor plated. It looked like, but
yeah, and
not
I have plecos in with my Exodons, and they do fine. I've plecos in with Bichers. I've also done plecos with piranhas. One of my most popular videos on another format. I think it's like 100,000 views now. Is just a little clip of the two common plecos. One of the few things that I've suggested and used common plecos for has been in piranha tanks over the decades. Because those big old common plecos, the piranhas typically do not mess with them. And in fact, the plecos have been known to beat the piranhas up and knock them away from food. It's just a case-by-case basis with different things. Paul Sterra with a $5 super chat says, James, it doesn't look like anyone has thrown brown piles of fertilizer, that little poo emoji there, on the stream today. Nope, no one's pooed on us today. So here you go. Thank you so much, Paul. I really do appreciate you, my friend. That is awesome of you to do that. Just thanks for always being here and sharing the knowledge. You're a huge part of filling that tank, that time acquiring new knowledge, Paul, because you're always dropping helpful hints and tips and sharing your experiences with us. So thank you for that as well. Scuba Stevo's Aquatics, one of our newest members, says, it's so bad I got fish tanks at other people's houses. Yeah,
that's what was making me laugh.
Fever, definitely.
I was listening to the cube.
Definitely. See, Ed gets to skip around and look at stuff. I have it logged. Whip's World, how's it going, Whip? Says, my want or lack thereof to do maintenance has cured me of my fish room fever. Yeah, definitely. You get to a certain point, like I was up at 100 tanks and it's like, I don't know if I want to have that high of a fever. Let me calm this fever down a little bit. Totally understand, Whip. Skipper's Aquarium says, I'm down. I'm trying to get one that is a year old with a stand for $40. Very cool. Very cool. Paul Ster saying Pistos for that previous recommendation. There you go. That's nice. Brad, Mr. Fish, sir, says, are you still teaching how-to videos for YouTube? I found a local fish store. I am always happy to help people in need. If you want my advice, if you will, always happy to do it. Brad's been with the channel for a long time, so he knows back in the day, before I kind of had to focus in to keep subscribers from walking away, I used to do a little bit more how-to stuff. I don't have a huge channel, but I've spent more time studying YouTube than studying being a fish channel, if that makes any sense, like the actual YouTube side of it. So I used to try and help people out. But if you've ever got questions, feel free to shoot me a message, buddy. I know you've got my contact info. Just shoot me an email if you've ever got a question, fishroomfever@gmail.com. I don't always get those. I'm trying to get it cleared out. I've got about 3,000 messages to delete out of that, which is about 95% garbage. I guess one of the upsides to having a publicly given out email address is that people don't like you. They put you on mailing lists. So I get some fun emails sometimes. Thank you all for that. Always keeps my day interesting when I check that stuff. Yeah, I'm always happy to help, buddy. All right. Robert Miyashiro says, thank you. They are Petco specials guppies. Nothing special. So yeah, so if you're not too worried about it, you could look at some other things mentioned. You're probably going to have predation on the fry. Angelfish, there are very few things I've seen attack guppy fry as quick as angelfish.
I thought of another thing. Maybe a pair of rams would be neat too, depending on how warm he keeps his tank.
Absolutely. Sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at Liquid Zoo. Yeah, Liquid Zoo says he replied to my 3-month-old email the other day. He is on top of it. I'm working on it.
I'm impressed that you did that.
I mean, I try. I that in the comments. I'm still I'll hit a comment 6 months later sometimes because I missed it or I get backlogged. I try to I sat down and went through X amount of weeks comments, and then sometimes when I'm off camera on yours, I might sit here and answer some comments. But I am trying. I'm definitely trying. It only took 3 months. Yeah. Well, I will say in my defense that Liquid Zoo's email was a little bit more in depth. It actually required me to do some researching on that particular subject and look into some legal stuff on my end. So it wasn't a simple yes or no or quick opinion type thing. But I try. I think I caught up. I hope I caught everybody's highlighted comments. If you had a comment that I didn't read or a question, rather, I do apologize. I try and catch all the highlighted ones because we're already taking an hour and 15 minutes. And we want to go over and hang out with Chattanooga Ed on the Chattanooga Ed YouTube channel because he's got some fun stuff going on tonight. Ed, you want to tell them what we're in store for or what you have in store for them?
We're gonna finish up the cave tank. So the last night I'm gonna work on the cave tank, and then maybe in about a month, hopefully I'll have it all set up and you'll be able to see it actually in use. And next week I'm really excited about my next project.
And this is the filter cover that you're making again tonight, correct? That you're working
on. The filter cover is completely done. It's all the stalactites.
Okay.
I'm going to give up on stalagmites.
Okay, gotcha.
No more stalagmites. When you look at the Bat Cave, on Batman, there's no stalagmites. It's all stalactites.
Yeah.
No stalagmites. We don't need them.
Absolutely. Well,
I think that's why they don't have them in Batman.
Definitely. I was just going to say, I thought it was neat. You were showing me before the show that you had designed it for a Zis filter, but it also worked really well at hiding that shark filter as well. So
yeah, I'll show that. I was going to do that.
Definitely. All righty. Well, come check out Chattanooga Ed. Hang out with us. I'm going to be there announcing, if you will, reading the chat and hanging out with you all while Ed does his art project. A huge thank you to all of the members, new and old, young and previously member-fied. I don't know how I wanted to phrase that, but it didn't work. But the moderators, the members, the lurkers, listeners, super chatters, and contributors, the observers, as somebody once phrased it, instead of lurkers. I appreciate each and every one of you all. A huge thank you to the replay crew. You guys are awesome. You always come through, and you always leave me a comment after you watch the replay or while you're watching it. So I appreciate that. Everybody that's here, almost 100 people hanging out tonight. A huge thank you. Of course, a big thank you to my buddy Chattanooga Ed, my buddy, pal, and co-host, and the other part of the team, which is Fish Room Fever. So until next time, keep your fish healthy. No, we're not going to say that. We're not going to say that. We're going to say, in the spirit of tonight's subject, come back next week so you can do a top off on your tank. Time acquiring new knowledge. Take care, everybody. I love you. We'll see you later. Bye-bye now.